So, Kali, I know we're still in the process of warming up. Tell me a little bit about the warm-up process. I know this is the O-Dome is a little bit different than some facilities where they do have a diving well off to the side. What are you doing in the time between your first event this morning and now?
You basically just have to stay as warm as you can. There's really nothing else that you can do. You know, just keep moving, jump around, definitely have a snack because it's a long time. And although you might not be hungry before the event, you will most definitely be hungry by the end of it because obviously you have so much adrenaline running through you and you kind of just forget that you're starving. So yeah, just stay warm, stay hydrated, eat food.
So obviously I think we might be having scoreboard difficulties here. They're not they're not able to show.
Yep, we don't have a list of names or a scoreboard, so we're just going to have to roll with it and do our best. A beautiful inward 1.5 pike, right up and over the board, just the way it's supposed to be. Slightly off to the side of the pool, closer to the land line than she would hope to be, but she made it onto her head. And when you're at that point of the dive, that's all you can hope for. Emily of Tennessee up next. Forward 2.5 tuck and a beautiful entry.
Ms. Collier, we're going to try our best to try to get some names, and unfortunately they are doing hand scoring, so we're not able to see any of the official scores because the officials have our back to us.
Yep. We'll do the best we can. Taya Siskakis. Front 2.5 pike, slightly over-rotated, but not a bad dive. And a beautiful dive. She's held her arms up for as long as she possibly could, and she was slightly out of balance, and I think she knew that, but she saved it very well.
So I know it's right before Brianna was setting up. A lot of times, what's going through your mind as you...
You just have to tell yourself to keep calm. Honestly, that's the only thing you can do in diving because obviously adrenaline is running through your body, you're shaking, and you're standing on the edge of a board. So all you can do is just try and keep calm. Brooke Madden with a front 1.5 full twist, slightly over-rotated, but she got a 6 and a 6.5, so she'll be happy with that.
Now, are you thinking about the dive itself, or you...
Yeah, basically you run through it in your head. You visualize it and you do actions, so you stand beside the board and actually imitate the dive. So when you get up there, it's kind of like muscle memory. Back 1.5 pike. 5.5, 6. A very strong hurdle and a beautiful takeoff, but that was probably a little bit faster than what she was expecting. It went so high up in the air. So it was slightly over-rotated, but a beautiful start, and that's something she can work with. As a diver, obviously you want to get the highest score possible, but if you're getting around 6s and 7s, you can normally say that you're pretty safe. A lot of the time, if you're getting 6s and 7s, you'll make the final every time. And obviously in a dual meet, we don't have that opportunity, but it's a good practice. Rachel Rubadu up now. A lovely back 1.5 pike. That was a beautiful dive.
8, 8.5?
Yep, she'll be happy with that. That's what you want.
Now, in preparation, you've got SEC diving coming up, the championship. Are you doing anything different today in preparation for that? Or are you just trying to work out all the fine details?
No, you normally, by this point, you pretty much know what you're doing. You don't really tend to make many changes. You just work on what you've already got going and just try and do things the best that you possibly can. And they'll start to lay off the weights and stuff like that, you know, taper time. Divers definitely don't taper anywhere near as much as swimmers do because it's just not as necessary. But we do a little bit. So that's what they'll be doing in the lead up to SECs. Great start on that back 1.5 pike, slightly shorter vertical, but a solid dive. I think the scariest thing for divers is having the whole swimming team sitting there with all eyes on you. But it's definitely something you get used to. It'll definitely be scary for the freshmen though, because they haven't experienced this before. A good in 1.5 pike from Abby. Up and over the board, and a lovely clean entry. Taya Saskakis. Taya is a sophomore from Canada.
Looks like there's a conversation going back with.
I think they announced the wrong dive.
Okay.
It probably startled her a little bit. A reverse half twist. Beautiful dive. That should score well. 6.5, 6. Rachel has beautiful hurdles. They're very strong. She gets very high, but she just came out a little bit too early on that one. A good in 1.5 pike from Miranda. I think she felt like she was close to the board there. That's why her legs had a slight bend in them.
You know, it's interesting, as you were mentioned, as you closer you come to the board, the higher your points would be.
Exactly, but not if you're too close. So you have to try and find that perfect distance, and that's something you normally work on in practice. Beautiful dive from Brooke. She'll be very happy with that one. Nice and high, kicks it out beautifully. Beautiful toe point, clean entry.
Sean Myers now will be back up for Tennessee.
I would say you do more in the water than you do elsewhere, absolutely, because that's the most important part. Anything on dry land helps you out with your aerial awareness, but when it comes to entries, that's, you know, it's all water work, and it's every single day.
How much of your training, Kali, are you doing different between the 1 meter and 3 meter?
It's very different. Normally, in a practice, you'll either be focusing on the 1 meter or the 3 meter. They generally don't correspond. The only part that does is the actual takeoff. Once you're in the air, it's a completely different feeling. So that's why a lot of people do get more scared as they go up higher, because things just change. Your aerial awareness is completely off. Taya Saskakis up now with a lovely back 1.5 pike, slightly over-rotated.
So in a given day during practice, you will say, okay, today I'm doing 1 meter, tomorrow I will do 3 meter. And okay.
Yeah, generally that's how it works. Of course, it's all up to coach, and each coach has a different style, but generally that's how you do it. And you generally would not do platform on the same day as you would do springboard. If anything, you would do either 1 meter or 3 meter, or 1 meter and 3 meter, and then platform on a completely different day. Back 1.5 twist, beautiful dive. You generally don't see dives done to your feet. They're usually on your head. But sometimes if you're working on a lead up, which is the dive that you do on the 1 meter before it's ready to take up to the 3 meter. So that's probably what she's working on right now, and that's probably why she competed that.
And that's going to end it.
Well, there we have it for the women.
And we'll see the men in the 3 meter later on. Welcome back to the O-Dome. I'm joined with Kalia Warner, and you know what?
Hello.
We've now adjusted. We're off from the 1 meter now to the 3 meter. Little bit different in the diving. You're still doing the same approach, but when you get in the air, it's a heck of a lot different.
More flips and more room to do it in. So you have to control that entry more. But the higher you get, the more exciting it gets. That's what they say. It's definitely true. We still don't have a scoreboard, but we'll do our best. Dylan Power with a front 3.5 pike, slightly shorter vertical.
4.5, 4.5 for the scores.
He still looks happy though. That's a good sign for the rest of the competition.
Next up for Tennessee,
Nick Rusek. Back 2.5 pike, slightly over, but he knee saved on that one. Knee saving is when you bend your knees as soon as you hit the water, and it kind of eliminates the splash.
A lot of height.
A beautiful double out from Sam. He'll score high, and he'll be very happy with that.
7-7.
There we go. Good start for him. But yeah, the television is, the television replay is always a useful tool, especially for divers, so you can make those corrections straight away. Front 3.5 pike for Dalton. Slightly short on that entry, but a good dive. 6.5.
Michael Howell now will be up for the Vols.
Michael Howell is a senior for Tennessee. So this will be his last dual meet before the championship season begins. I think they've messed up his order of dives here. Okay, so they've corrected it, and he's doing a reverse 2.5 tuck. Beautiful takeoff. Just kicked it out way too late. It's always good to see the crowd getting behind you when something happens like that.
And you could tell Nick was like, oh.
He's like, oh, well, it happened. Nothing he can do about it.
Next up will be Samuel Smith for the Gators. And he's still walking over. Nick's still walking up to his coach laughing.
It's definitely a good way to be in diving because you can always come back. Big dive for Sam. That's a reverse 3.5 twist. That's a lot of twisting to fit in such a short amount of room, but he does a good job. Slightly short, if anything, but a solid dive.
You can almost look at Liam's eyes. You can see he's walking into the end of the board. And
yep, you can see him kind of planning out exactly how things are going to go down. And that is a huge dive for Liam. That's a reverse 3.5 tuck. Big, big dive, slightly short. But again, a very hard dive, and it's something he's probably working on a lot. A good full out from Dylan. Dylan's a very talented diver, and I think we can expect to see some big things for him over the next 4 years. He was slightly back on the end of the board, so when you're in that position, it's very hard to get the dive moving, but he did a pretty good job. It was slightly short, but he got it around better than he would have expected, I think. Beautiful dive from Sam. Absolutely beautiful. Great takeoff, great spin.
7.5, 7.5.
There we go.
Daniels had a pretty good meet today.
They sure did. Very impressive.
Now, since this really is the first time some of these divers are able to get back into the O-Dome, how is the whole facility change different for the Gators right now?
Honestly, I don't think any of the changes to the O-Dome, that was a beautiful full out. That'll score well. I don't think any of the changes will really affect the divers. I mean, the only real significant change is the blue walls on either side of the pool. But when you're in the middle of your dive, you don't see that.
Okay.
So, I guess for the divers, the one thing I could think of is that they were training outside for, most of the year, and it's very different to being inside. Your aerial awareness completely changes because, the water and the sky are the same color.
Correct.
So that makes things more difficult.
And there's Samuel Smith.
Back 2.5 pike for Sam, slightly over-rotated, but not a bad dive. Beautiful front 3.5 pike for Liam. Strong takeoff, it moves well. Beautiful toe point. 8.5, and very well deserved.
Wow.
A beautiful reverse 2.5 pike from Sam. That's going to score very high.
Sam has done 6.5.
6.5. The reason I'd say for the 6.5 is probably that it was a little bit far out. it was a little too far from the board is basically what I'm saying, but that was a beautiful dive and a great entry, and you know, you can't complain when you do a dive like that.
Liam Stone now is set to go. If I remember correctly, Liam's going to sit there and look at the board and go through every part of this dive.
Yeah, he does take a lot longer to go than everyone else, but you can tell that he's just thinking about what he has to do, and that works for some people and it doesn't work for others. So that's something about diving. You just have to find what works for you. Beautiful dive. Liam, he's so talented and he's had an incredible meet today. I expect to see big things out of him at SECs and NCAAs this year.